Okay, we are back with another live stream to do the Smart Trader React application. Let me pull up. So I've decided that instead of doing it live every Saturday morning, because sometimes it's hard for me to do that, I'm just going to create these videos whenever I can, and then just upload them and keep them in order. Because I've gone ahead and gone way ahead with the application. So I'm going to show it, and then I'll show what I have so far, and then I'll go back and build the code out in the repo that I have stored on GitHub right now, just so it's easy to follow along. And then at the very end, when everything's all done, I'll make it so that I'll go through like a couple quick, short, like 20-minute, maybe like 20-minute videos to walk through all the code at the very end when it's done. But like, at least this way, doing the tutorial, you can watch all the code being built if you want to take the long way to building it. So let me pull up what we have so far. Oh, I don't have it. Where is it? Hold on. Okay, pull it over here. Close that, close this. Okay, share the screen. Okay, so here's what we've got so far. So this is just the dashboard. So we went through, we can add trades. We've got the ledger here. We did some CSS. So we show whether it's a buy or a sell by highlighting it green. We can go in and edit. We added where we can, if it's a buy, we can say if we're opening the trade or not, like one big trade is being opened. On the sell side, we can close the trade, not close the trade. We have nothing in the statistics yet, which I have done on the further along, I guess, application I'm building, which I'm going to show in a second. But this is what we've got so far. So we can edit, we can delete from the ledger, we can add trades, but that's about it. And then because my biggest issue on the last video was like how to package. So for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, these 5 SMCI trades are all technically one big trade, and I need it packaged that way in order to do the trade statistics like I've shown on the Excel model that I'm following, that I had built. So let me show you what I've got on, let me close this one down and show you what I've got on this one. Oops. Oops. Get that fired up. Okay. Pull this one over. And I've made a lot of headway. Well, I just did that on this one. Okay, so this one actually has a dashboard when you pull up. This CSS needs to be fixed, but basically this is the current portfolio. So this is the only trade I have in here, which is not closed, which means it's current and it's open. I put API here because I haven't implemented the yfinance API, which I think I'm going to use, but there also is a Google Finance one. So I'm going to play around with those and see which one works better before I start implementing them. But if we go to the ledger here, so I don't know, and I'll leave it up to you can decide how you want this to look, but basically I made it so that this kind of brighter green is when I open the trade, and then the lighter green is just a buy. And then same thing with the sell. So like if we take SMCI, for instance, the dark green is when we initiated the trade, we added, we trimmed some, but not all of it. And then the dark red is when, or bright red, whatever, is when we close the trade out completely. So I don't know if I love this or not. I don't know if it's necessary, but right now I don't have that many trades on here. But I mean, I have hundreds a year. And so I'll play around with that and I'll show you how I did it. So if you don't like this and you want to go back to the other way where it's just like a green and red, or you don't want anything, or you just maybe want the box here to be like a bright red, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe I'll make it light green and light red, and then just this box, if I'm opening the trade, will be bright green and bright red. I don't know, but it's easy to play around with however you want to do it. Added some more styling to the edit and delete buttons. They still work the same. But the real great part I got figured out is the trade statistics. So this all works. I got all the different trades to package. So like here's the complete SMCI trade. CCJ is open, so there's no real reason to to show, I guess I could put open price should be here. But other than that, there's no real reason to show, actually, I mean, there's no real reason to show any of this because for CCJ, this will show up on the portfolio tab. And then once the API is implemented, that'll all make sense. But I do like to know what trades I have like actively open, even on this. And then realized gain, unrealized, I just made a variable and hard coded it for right now because that I can't get this without the API knowing what the current prices are of the stocks. So that's just hard coded in. But everything else is real. They're not my portfolio. I would have loved to made this trade on SMCI at this size, but so the win-loss percentage, and again, this is only for closed trades, like completed trades. And then it highlights green if it was a gain in the trade. And then if it was a loss in the trade, it's this red one. And then what's even cooler, which I was talking about, I kind of wanted to do, you click details and it will show you the details for the actual trade. So this is helpful to me because when I go to trading view, which is what I use for my charting platform, it's good to, now I can like put them side by side on my monitors and say like, okay, I bought this on 1204 or 1224. What did I buy for what reason? Okay, it was a shaper, it was a tactical, pattern was a downtrend line. These are all made up for right now. Was that the right thing to do? And so I can go back and I actually analyze the trade and I can see it broken down and I can look at each piece because each piece of this, each transaction matters in the overall trade and how I handled the total trade. So I thought this was really cool. I'm glad this is here. So now, and you can see the the average open price, close price. And then again, you drill down here and say like, okay, I bought it at 400 here on 1.9. Like, was that a good idea? Should I have done something different? Like you can really drill down. And I think this is important in order to like improve, at least for me, my trading process. So that's great. And then this isn't going to be anything too cool until I get the API hooked up, but I'm excited about that. And then equity curve will be pretty simple once I have the unrealized gain here, which will populate here. Again, this is just hard coded. This will be unrealized, and then realized will be all the closed trades. And then I'll have a total like current P&L, and that's basic. All the equity curve it will just be mapped to this every day. So that should be pretty simple. But I have to figure out the API thing. So this is great. I'm excited. I got this figured out, and now I'm excited to share like how it all works with y'all. So in order to let me go ahead and move this code here. Let me close this one off. Reopen this one. Oops, don't want that. Do that. Okay, now let me just make sure I've got, so this is here. Okay, let me just share so I can switch back and forth between the screens. Let's see, entire screen. Okay, make sure this works okay. All right, great. So now we can see, now I can go back and forth between the two. So back to the old boring one we've got here. And then I have the code, let's see here. So let's start with, I guess we'll start with what should we tackle here first? I'm thinking most important because I mean the CSS, yeah, that's great, but we can really just kind of copy and paste that in now. I think more important and what I want to tackle today is how to package these transactions into one big trade. Yeah, I think let's do that. So let me just pull up here some code. So basically what we're going to do, and we're going to do this all in this utils folder, and we're going to have a couple different files. So we're going to have first, call these the calc functions. And we're going to have the portfolio stat functions. And I'm just going to copy these over and walk through them. Because again, I think for the sake of time, it doesn't make sense for me to type all this out. I've already done it all. Okay. So what I did here, and I'll walk through my kind of thought process and how I think about this. So I just set the portfolio like starting value to be $1 million to keep this simple. And then I created a list of trades. And this is how I usually do my, whether I'm in Python or JavaScript, like if I'm going to create an external file with lots of different functions, I like to kind of test it inside the file first with whatever data. So I just make up like fake data. Sometimes what I'll do too is I'll just create a file called data and I'll import the data so it doesn't take up so much space here, which I don't really love how this is doing right now. But either way, they're good ways to just test and not, that way you know if there's a problem with your calculation, or before you try and import it, especially if it's more complicated, and then you try and import it into your component and then it breaks in the component. Now it could be a lot of different reasons that it's not working. So I like to test my more complicated functions once I get a good rhythm. And if the first few functions are like working properly with the data, then I'll play around with it in the component. If everything starts working, then I'll just start running them or importing them into the component. So all I did here was make a few fake trades. I started really basic with just like one Amazon buy and one Amazon sell, and then kind of built up from there. And here you can see where I added the open trade and close trade, which is really important for how this works. And then the other thing was I originally kept these all in order. So it was like, see, it was just a bunch of Amazon buys. And then I had the sell, and then, but then I started mixing in like, okay, but because the way it's looping through the data that's coming in is important, because if this was all in perfect order, it'd be a lot easier. The problem is, let's say I put the wrong date on a trade. Well, now I need to go, and then I go back and change it. It needs to be able to handle that edit. So it's not like you're just going to completely kind of like push something to the end of the array. Like this is each trade is an object, and you're just getting back an array of objects. So need to make sure that it doesn't just go from index 0 to, the length of the array, because those dates can change. So it's important to be able to handle that. So that's where it got kind of really complicated. So anyway, here's a bunch of trades. And then the group trades, it was the hardest part. The rest of this stuff's pretty straightforward. Like, gain loss is pretty obvious, how that kind of works and stuff. But first, we have to group the trades. So that's kind of the most important function here. So here we're going to use a map, basically like a hash map. So we'll pass the trades in, which eventually when we run it will be this kind of list of trades here, array of trades, whatever we call it in JavaScript. I get my Python and JavaScript terminology mixed up a bit. And so basically what we're saying here is we're setting the ticker key. So let's say that Amazon comes through, right? Because each trade, going through an array of trades, which each trade is an object. So we can use the dot notation here to target the ticker. So right here, for trade in trades, trade.ticker would be Amazon. Okay, so we're going to go through, and then we just need to make sure to index it because we're using the map. So we'll set the ticker key equal to that ticker. So let's just say it's Amazon is the first one. Now, if the trade group, which we're starting here, doesn't have the ticker key, we are going to create a new array, because basically what we're getting is now we're going to have let me maybe type this out here. What we're going to end up with is, and you'll see this in the console log, but we're basically going to have here is, maybe I should comment this out. So we're going to have grouped trades will essentially equal, it'll be an array, and then inside the array will be an array of objects. So maybe I'll just denote this as saying like this is one big trade, which is comprised of objects. So, I'm just going to say Amazon 1. These aren't, obviously you wouldn't type it like this. I'm just trying to show how this is working in case you're not familiar, because sometimes the arrays and the objects and then an object of arrays, and it all gets kind of confusing. So I just want to kind of type this out to show what this is doing. Amazon, whoops, 3. Okay, and let me do this. This is the Amazon trade, and then I'll just copy this and say this is like the NVIDIA trade. Okay, so what we have here, so we have the grouped trade. So the group trade is one big array, and then that array has arrays in it. And each one of those arrays has objects in it. Okay, so the overall array here is, and actually let me space this out. Maybe this will be easier to see. So here's the big array. That's our group trades. Within that, we then have an array for each big trade, which contains objects, which are the transactions or the smaller trades, the buys, the sells, the adding, the trimming, the initiating the position, the closing the position. So an Amazon trade, let's say we bought Amazon, right? This would be the first trade. We open the trade. And so that trade is an object, which we have here. It contains all the data we can access with dot notation, which is great. Then we decided to add more to Amazon, just making these up. This is the second transaction or trade. And then we sold all of Amazon, which means this trade is now closed. That whole thing is an array of objects. And then again, we do it with NVIDIA, CCJ, SMCI, Apple, NVIDIA, well, like whatever you want to do. So that's how this is working. I just want to keep this here for a second, even though I know this, obviously that syntax isn't real syntax. It's just to try and show that. So if we don't have this ticker set up, so let's say we go through the list and we've now stored this, right? But now we get to NVIDIA and we realize, oh, wait, within this array, we don't have a ticker key of NVIDIA. Great. Then we are going to set up a new trade group with ticker key and an empty array, right? Because now we have NVIDIA and it's an array of objects. So that's how that's working there. So fairly simple. Now, that's how it groups the trades. Now it's important to know if a trade is open or a trade is closed. And so the way we do that is, so we now have the ticker groups. So trade groups, so the ticker group is trade groups.get ticker key. And remember, the ticker key is the ticker of the stock. So whether it's Amazon or NVIDIA or whatever, we have this ticker group. Then if it is an open trade, right? Because now you have to think about, you can have multiple Amazon purchases, which is what I did in this trade data here. So for instance, Amazon got closed here. And then we opened, wait, why is that? Oh, I'm sorry, no. Yes, okay, Amazon got closed. Where did I close the Amazon trade? Hold on. Okay, so we opened the Amazon trade here. Oh, and then we closed the Amazon trade here, right? So that was one trade we did whenever, January, whenever this, I pretended to make this. But then down here, we reopened a new Amazon trade. So now we have to handle the fact that if all we did was group by ticker, we'd have a problem because I can buy the same stock multiple times throughout the year. And that was actually the biggest problem I was having with Excel, was trying to figure out how to tell my active portfolio page that this is a new trade, because it was looking at the list of all the trades. And so and I'm sure there's probably a Python script you could put in Excel, but at that point it seemed like, why not just build this thing out? And which is why I'm doing this. So we need a way to separate that we have two different Amazon trades that happen, let's, just say throughout the year, January and it'll say March. So that's where this open trade became a big deal. So if it's an open trade, now we are going to have a new group, right? And that's what this is doing. And it's the ticker group dot push the trade. So that's telling it that's going to be the index of 0, right? That's going to be inside of this array, this Amazon one object is the open trade. So that goes at the beginning, right? So that kicks off, that kicks off that new kind of like trade, we'll call it, right? Oh, sorry, that's up here. So we'll push that. Then we have to handle the close trade because it needs to know when now to close that array, the trade array off. So if it gets the else if, right? And we're just going to basically what we're doing is just adding it in here. I had to play around with this a lot to sometimes the length and the -1s and like where it is in the index when it gets a little more complicated like this. So this chick honestly just was a fiddling around with it over and over until it worked. And then I tested it a bunch of different ways. So then if it's the close, it will add it here, right? And that's basically what you're doing here, dot length -1. So index group dot length, because remember you index at 0. So the length, you have to -1 to get the actual index properly. Then what is this one? Const last open group. What is that part? Last open group ticker. If last open group. Okay. Then now the important part, so that's what all that does, right? So that gets that in that big structure. Then we go through and just use some of the array methods properties. And we're just basically what we're going through is the trade groups dot values. So their key value pairs, right? So we're just looping through all the values and we're just building the groups together in arrays. And that's what we're returning. So this is how we get it to be structured this way so we can use the data properly. So that's all this is doing. And again, this was just a lot of, like, I had never used any of this in the reduce, in the ACC. But the cool thing about, VS Code is you can go in here and see how all the different stuff works. And it's basically just like a callback function that's built in. What do they call these, methods or properties? Methods in JS. Okay. So that was the big thing. That's what allows. Ooh, am I on the right? Oh, wait, I'm on the, I closed the other one. That's what allows the statistics page to actually build itself. Now, go back here. And to take all of these and group them together properly, regardless of whether the trade is open or the trade is closed, regardless of whether we buy the same, we buy Amazon 5 times this year in different actual trades, open and closed trades. It handles all of that. So far, it hasn't broken on me. Maybe I need to do a little bit more testing, but for the most part, it works, which is great. And then these are pretty simple. These will be on the GitHub repo, but I mean, I'll just go, a basic gain loss. And I do a lot of console logging to test that like everything's working. And I'll show you on the inspect tool, when we build the statistics page, I'll show you how all the grouping works rather than here right now. So in a second since I've looked at this. Yes. Okay, so we're taking the trade list. Okay. Wait, where's my trade list setting? Oh, duh, I'm calling it down here. Okay, so that's just a parameter, not the argument. So we take in a group of trades or a list of trades, and then we can get the total gain loss simply by Okay. So we get the list of trades. So this is like, because what we're going to do is we are going to map through. We're going to get this back in the statistics component using the use effect, just grabbing it from using a get to grab it from the Mongo database. And then we are going to map through, and then we are going to group. And then from there, I have a special, Where is it down here? Oh, goodness. Hold on, let me pull it up and. Oh, right. Okay. So when I get the data back, I'm going to use the group trades function on all the trades that come through, which will give me back this. And that's what I'm going to set stocks to. And then I'll use map to map through. So that'll target each one of these trades. So the way this is working is it's just getting the first array of trades. I had to check that. There's so many different arrays, and maybe there's a better way to do this, but for right now it's working great. So we just set total gain loss equal to 0. We loop through. If it's a buy, then we just add to it price, right? Because we have access to price and shares. And this will be cost. So that's why we're timesing it by -1. So we're just taking price times shares times -1 because it's a debit, right, from our cash. So that's negative. And then otherwise it has to be, because remember we have this as an enum, so it has to be buy or sell. I won't go back and show that, but it is. Else we'll show it as price times shares, and then we just net the two, right? That just automatically, this will subtract from this. This will add to this, and then we'll just return gain loss. They're all pretty simple like this. Cost, similar thing. Set cost here, loop through. If it's a buy, then we know the cost. Average open price, similar thing. We loop through. If the buy sell equals buy, then we just get total shares, right? So we just target this. We just add up all the shares. And then the average price is just and we use the total cost function up here and divide it by total shares. So these are all pretty straightforward. They're basically looping through. Basically what we're doing is targeting every piece in here and then just looping through all the trades and then targeting basically these two numbers and adding them up or dividing them in a certain way. So I don't think any of these are all that. I mean, percent gain loss, this again is just making it percentages. These ones were important for doing the dynamic CSS. If we want it to be light green, dark green, I needed to go through and be able to test this. So I'll show how that works once we get there. Get owned shares. This is for open trades. So we know how many shares we own at a time, but we're not going to get into that today. Again, current share. A lot of this is just basic for loops with conditionals. Open trade true. And then I just exported all of these. Now, on the portfolio stats. I've got dual coffees today. Actually, give me 1 second. Okay, so that's how those ones work. And then we're going to use these to build the statistics page. Now, we have to take it one step further because all this is really doing is getting us data for each individual trade. And actually, maybe we'll just build that first, and then this portfolio stat functions, this is for the header. So let's go ahead and actually can save this. Let's go ahead and let's set up our trade stats page here. And this one is a doozy. Oops. See if that breaks anything real quick. Oh. Oh, yeah, okay. We are not going to use this right now. Oh yeah, did I not do the, let's throw these in here real quick too, because these are pretty simple. Whoops, that's not a format. Let me grab these real quick. These are pretty straightforward. Actually, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, format functions. Make sure I'm exporting these. Okay. So all these is a way to just to format the data on the front end. So it's basically, and I think this is where I was having a problem on the date. Let me take a look at, where were we doing this? On the ledger. Didn't I have a function for, oh, I know what I did. I had to change, shoot, where was it? It was called, oh, there it is. You have to use, you don't have to, but instead of doing just get month or get day or get year, you can use get UTC month. And this solved, so you just got to add UTC. And this solved, added it here to the date. This solved the issue of, because every time the date was displaying, it was fine in the database and it was saving to the database, coming back from the database. And I was like, why does it keep displaying as the date -1? And it's because depending on where you live, that's exactly what the date object does. So a way around that, because since when the user adds the date to the database, it's adding it at UTC. You might as well just return it in UTC because you want that same date. Otherwise, it's going to try and manipulate it to your time zone. So that's what this does. So that's the one thing that needed to change. So everything was working fine as far as going into the database, coming back from the database. It just wasn't displaying properly because the date object here, or constructor, whatever, will try and get it back to your time zone. So that was a good fix there. I guess if you save it in your time zone and then get it back in your time zone, but it seems easier to just, all I care about is that I don't care about the time or the seconds or whatever. So I think it even comes back with milliseconds. But anyways, that's how that works. Cost format, I think we went through these. I just put them all. I think we had all these. Yeah, we did. Other than the date, I don't think I really changed anything. I just put them in their own file here so I could import them much easier. And they didn't have to take up so much space. So on the trade stats, okay, we're not going to worry about, me hide this. We're not going to worry about the header. I don't think we'll have time today to do the overall portfolio statistics, but most importantly, want to see how each trade we can break down and get the values for. So let's go. So none of this will matter today. Let's just go through the basics of what we're doing here on the trade stats page, because the ledger is fine. Again, the only thing that needs to change on the ledger, which is, I'm going to start saying transactions. And then when I say trade, that refers to multiple transactions within one trade, which is a little clearer. So, we can clean up the CSS. This is just, I want to get more into the functionality than spend way too much time on CSS. So on the statistics page, whoops, hold on. What do we actually have here? And then we'll figure out why it's not showing up. I probably just don't have it on the app.jsx yet. So I had to hard code a couple things for right now. Portfolio value is 1 million. Unrealized gain, this actually won't matter today, but again, hard coded because I can't get an unrealized gain if I don't know the current prices of stocks from the API. We're going to use stocks and set stocks. We have to use a state updater. But again, this is for the header because I needed to wait to lift state and then pull the state. I'm sorry, not for the header, but for the when we click in to a trade and then it gives us the details of the trade with all the transactions and all that stuff. I needed to lift state in order to get it into the details page, but we won't worry about that today. And then it just our regular navigate. So what we're doing here is just using use effect similar to the ledger to get all stocks, again, similar to the ledger. And then what we're doing is we're setting stocks to, we're going to run them through the group trade. So it groups them properly the way we want them. And then we're going to set it to stock state. Typical catch error thing. Again, these won't matter today. Because I'll be passing these through props in order to make the header at the top. And details handler, this doesn't matter. That's probably why this isn't working because I don't have this. And then what we're going to do is we are going to pretty straightforward stuff, very similar to the ledger, just using different column headers. And we're going to use the same store. Now this was interesting because we're getting back an array. This was another one I could not find online anywhere how to figure this out. So I just kept going back and forth and back. And I even tried this in ChatGPT and it didn't understand what I was trying to do. So I just kept moving the numbers and stuff around. But basically what you have to do is do the A/B sort, but you have to add the index here, index of 0, because it needs to grab. So remember, we're grouping the trades. So what stocks is the group trades. It is this, right? It's the organized trades. So A would be this, and B would be this. But in order to sort it, you want to sort it by the open date, which the great thing about the way this is built is these are in order of by date, the way it's structured in this function. So we need to target index 0, right? Because stocks is an array of an array. And the only way we can sort it is to actually target it by doing this. So we do index 0.date, and then it'll sort it properly for us. And then all we're doing here is, and we can't use, I don't think there's going to be a way around this because, again, this is a trade of trades. This is an array of arrays. So we can't use the index of the trade like we can on the ledger. Because remember, on the ledger, we're using stock.down_ID, which is how Mongo saves the ID. But that's because each one, a stock in the stocks is an actual object, a single object. Here, each stock is technically an array of transactions. So we can't do that. We just have to use index. And then everything else, it looks like a lot of stuff, but it's really not. This was just so that we could, this was also, I could hide if it was an open trade. If you remember the way I showed CCJ at the beginning, it was an open trade. So I didn't want all the columns to show up. So this is where I built the open trade true. So basically this is just saying if the trade isn't closed yet, it doesn't have a dot. If dot closed trade is false, then we're gonna use the hidden display, which is, and that, let's see. Let's actually see why this isn't. Okay. Clear open trades is not defined. Oh, shoot. Yeah. What am I using clear open trades for? Oh, that makes sense. Comp these up. All right, I think we got it. Cool. All right, so let me show, whoops, before we go to, God, I hate how it does that. Come back over here. Hey, there we go. Before we look at the page, I just want to show the way the data is coming in. So if we look at the use effect, so we're going to set stop. So what we're getting, we're going to console log. Actually, let me console log just the results real quick too, so you can see that. Save that. The results. So the results is every single object coming out of, it's JSON, right? But then we need to get that all organized. Like we've been talking about the array of objects. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So this is what's coming back. I don't know why React does this twice. So this is what we're getting back from Mongo. And it's just an array of objects, but they're all mixed in and confusing and not grouped together. So we need to handle that. So we handle that by running the grouped trades function that we went through. And so now we have an array of group trades. And so each array is just an array of objects. So we've got 2 for Apple, 5 for SMCI, 2 for the second SMCI trade, and then 2 for the CCJ trade. And then inside of each one of these, of course, you have access to the price, the shares, and all that stuff. So that's great. See if this looks right. I think so. I haven't tested, and this just isn't hiding because I don't have it in the CSS file. That's all. That's no big deal. And then of course details. I had to hide that button because it has a on submit or on click handler, and it'll break it because it doesn't go anywhere. So now we have these groups. So let's take a look at the ledger. So instead of looking at it this way, we just have all the trades. And remember, these are all ordered and sorted by date of the transaction, we'll call it. Now go to statistics and they're all grouped together. And so we can see average open price. I guess we could test to make sure. Let's see. Let me open up. Let me unshare my screen real quick just to make sure I don't. Let me open up. Okay, put this over here. Well, actually, I guess I'll be doing that over here anyway, but just show you. I am just going to make sure this works, I'm just going to use a basic Excel here. So we'll just do shares. We'll just test the SMCI one because that's the biggest one. Shares price, and we'll see if we're getting what we want. So I'll move this over here so I can see the ledger. All right, so shares we did. Actually, that's annoying. Let's do it this way. Okay, so price, so we did 300 at 200 shares. We did $400 at 200 shares. We did 450, 100 shares. we sold, yeah, 700, negative 200. And then we closed the trade out with the last bit was 600, negative 300. Oops. Oops, how did that work? And then let's get the, and then we can do like, let's see if that's right, first of all. Well, let me do this. Actually, I have all the data I need. I don't need anything else. Oh, these should be flipped technically, but yes, it worked. 135,000, 135,000 right here. Let's just check the average open price. Just want to make sure that one's working. So that would just be, I'm like blanking right now. Oh, okay. Oops. Yeah. 370 and 370. So it is working. That is great. Close this off. Don't need this anymore. So this is working great. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. I guess we have time here to, what should we do? I got like 30 minutes left. I can either do details or the portfolio statistics. Let's do the portfolio statistics because I don't really feel like doing all the lifted state stuff right now. And honestly, I don't know that I have that. I don't know that I'm doing that right now because I'm having some issues where actually it might happen right here. Let's just see. I'm having some issue. Oh no, it doesn't happen here. I'm having some issues when I click into the details and I go to the details and I hit refresh. It's taking me to a blank page and that's not right. So I should probably figure that out before I share how to do that. So let's deal with the header now. So I'm going to set. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, let's do the header. Let's see. All right. So we are going to, let me just unlock this stuff. Well, I don't have the header in the components. Do I? Navbar. Again, for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy this stuff over because, and then just walk through it. I think it's just a smarter way to do it. Save everyone some time. Okay. And actually, before we do this, let's do the, actually, let me get out of here real quick. Let's do this we're going to need. So let me go here. Not gonna lie, these ones do get a little confusing, so I don't know that we'll make it through all of this, but we will try. You will try. So let's walk through what we're doing here. And actually, maybe I should open that Excel back up. So just a review. Basically, the things I like to look at are my win-loss rate. So again, one trade is multiple transactions, more than likely, for me anyway. Especially on a day like today. Today, the market is getting smacked around. So it's good I cut risk on a couple things like JFrog and CyberArk yesterday, like right before the close. And thank God, because the market gapped down and it would have gapped right through all my stops. So, but that's why it's important, I think, at least if you're truly actively managing, in order to like trim and add at proper buy and sell points is important. So anyway, so I like to know for the overall trade win loss, right? So if we take a look at this, so win, this is still open, loss, win. So 66% win rate, which quite frankly is rare. It's rare to be over 50% unless you're a genuine day trader. And that's okay, because as long as you manage your risk on the downside and catch a hold of big winners on the upside, you get a few big winners and then everything else is scratches, right? Like little win, little loss, little win, little loss. As long as you don't have big losses and you can grab a few big winners, the math really works in your favor. Even if you're only batting 30%, you can really make it work. But either way, I like to see how this is working. And then I like to know my average win percent, average win loss, which is important. But quite frankly, and then the average dollar, what's most important is this, right? Because let's say my average win is 14.35%. But on these wins, I only have a 3 or 4% position. But on the loss, I have a 10% position. Well, who cares? Like it's sort of like someone says, oh, about a stock that tripled. Well, if it's 1% of your portfolio, you're literally adding 2% to your portfolio. Whereas and that's hard to find a stock that triples. If you can find multiple stocks that go up 60, 70%, and that's 80% of your portfolio, your volatility is a lot lower. So they're a lot easier to hold on to, easier to manage risk, and you've got size in them. And so they make a big impact on your, right? Because if you have your portfolio 100% bet, let's say five positions, 20% each, and you go up 40%, your portfolio is up 40%, not the 2% because you just, had a stock that tripled. Like, it's cool to talk about, but it's rare and it doesn't really impact your portfolio all that much. So anyway, that's why this really, at the end of the day, these and these what matter. When you do the math between these, if this number is much bigger than this number, then this number can be bigger than this number. Otherwise, you have a problem, right? Because if your loss is bigger than your win and you have more losses than wins, it's just basic math. And that's why this stuff's so important to track for anyone who wants to be, even if you're not actively trading, like you should be able to watch and see what's actually happening, rather than talk about where all these stocks we're buying could go, in 4 or 5 years. The only thing that matters is what you pay for it and what you sell it for. And everything else is just talk. So that's the stuff we want to look at. And then we want to get this. And again, this is going to come from the API. So I'm hard coding it for right now. And this will come from closed trades. And then we add them together, get this, and then we get the total P&L for the year. So that's what we're looking at. Close that. Don't save. So that's what we're trying to do with our code. And we're going to try and get a header up here that does that. So let's go through our portfolio statistics functions for the header. Again, I did the same kind of similar thing where I just built a group of trades here. So we could see how this works. Did lots of them. And then I ran the typical group trades and set it to all trades. So first we need to clear the open trades. So remember, CCJ is an open trade. All we're looking for on the portfolio statistics page is, except for the total P&L, everything else is going to calculate off of closed positions, realized gains and losses. Because otherwise it's just, if you haven't closed the position, how did you really do on the trade? You don't really know. You could change this around to not do this, I guess, but this makes the most sense to me. So all we're going to do is we're going to go through the, we'll just kind of let updated trades. Again, we're running a couple for loops. to say, tired. We have to do a double for loop because I guess I could have run this through it. But anyway, we basically have to loop through every object is essentially why we're doing 2 for loops here. And then if the close.trade equals true, then we will push it to the trade. So now we know that the trade is closed. So that's what that's doing. Batting average. This is our percent win, percent loss. Again, most of these are pretty simple. I won't go through all of them, but you're basically just saying we use the gain loss function from the other file. If it's a gain, add it to the win column. If it's a loss, add it to the loss column. And then our win percent is just the number of wins over our wins plus our losses times 100. I actually don't even know why I have this here because I don't really need that trade. I just need the count. I must have been trying to do something weird here. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I don't even think this is necessary. So we're just counting the number of wins, counting the number of losses, and dividing into it. It's pretty straightforward. And we're returning. This is important, though, in a lot of these functions because I don't want to have just a myriad of functions for everything. I don't want win percent and loss percent to be 2 separate functions because I already have enough functions. We will be using dot notation. So this is important to remember. On a lot of these are two-way. They're the wins and the loss. So we're returning to, and you can just use dot notation to access this, right? So you just do batting average dot win percent, batting average dot loss percent, and I'll show that. Average dollar win. Oh, I guess here's where I needed this. I could probably go through, I might clean these functions up when we're done. Because I think when I was building them, I was just trying to like figure out, see, average win. Oh, right. I did this twice because I needed to actually add values up. We're not just counting. We're doing plus equals the actual win in the win list. So basically what we did is we created, if it's a win, we push the entire object, the entire trade, to the array. And then down here, we're looping through the win array and we're adding the win onto it. And then we're just we're just dividing into them. Right. So the final win equals the average win over the average win list, which are average win list. So this is the value, the dollar amount of all the wins. And then this is the length of each of those wins combined as an array. So we count. So if there are 3 trades, you add the dot value of each one divided by 3. And again, we have final win, final loss. I'll go back through and clean these up at some point. Whenever I get a chance to, because I kind of just built these on the fly, just kind of like brute forced it. Similar stuff here, average percent when we're just using percent instead of dollar amount. What is this? Average portfolio win loss. Bum, bum, bum. Where is my portfolio percent impact? Hold on. Oh, right. This is being imported from the other one. That's why. One thing to know, and I've made this mistake a lot as I've been building this, is this, I think this is the only, there might be one more that takes in 2 arguments. Portfolio is just the value of the portfolio, right? Because it needs to divide into the starting value of the portfolio in order to calculate this stuff. So that's important because I've made the mistake a lot and I can't seem to figure out what I'm doing wrong. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't pass in portfolio. So this is all of that. Realized gain loss, pretty straightforward. We're just adding, we're using gain loss, looping through and adding all the values together. Total dollar P&L, we're adding realized plus unrealized. Again, this is the other one, I guess. Total dollar P&L and total percent P&L require 2 arguments as well. And remember, unrealized hard-coded right now until we get the API activated. And then this is just times 100. These ones are pretty simple. These ones are simple. I think I just I need to clean up the naming of stuff. I did them all in one day, and obviously I was a little fried by the end. So I'll go through and fix those and make them cleaner. And then we export. Actually, I'm gonna make a note of that. So yeah. Clean up. Okay, that'll be easy. Maybe not easy, but, and then we're exporting all of these. So we have a lot of functions. I think the names of the functions are fine and pretty straightforward. Some of these, the problem with using the word trade, I may go back through and call everything a transaction and then just the big thing a trade. Again, I just want to get it up and working for anyone that wants to use this, and for myself personally to use it, actually. Because the longer it takes, the longer I just have to keep building out an Excel spreadsheet and then importing all of the Excel transactions here. But at the end, I will clean it up and make it look more professional. The other thing, I'm learning how to use Nest and Prisma to put a MySQL backend on a React application. And honestly, SQL would be way easier to use, especially if we're going to have like user login and stuff. And so I'm going to build this whole thing out just for my own sake, to learn Mongo and Mongoose and really the underlying, how Express is actually working. This has been helpful because Nest uses Express. It's built on top of it. But so I think this is a project I'm going to finish. But I think at the end, if I want to make it available like a production ready application, I'm going to have to use Nest so that people, especially because it's financial information, so people can log in and use all their like authorization tokens to make it much more secure than just what I could do with React and Express and Mongoose and stuff. So anyway, side note. Okay, so so these are all done. Let's open the header back up. Wait, where are we? Component trade stats header. Okay, so all we're doing here is just importing our format stuff, because what we're going to do is we're going to do all, so that we don't have to call the database again for the header. We are going to do all of the, where are you? Oh, here. Oh, I hate when it does that. We are going to call the database once, and then we are going to create all the variables here, do all the calculations here, and just pass in the variable through header using props, and then just grab it here, deconstruct it with props. I feel like there's a better way, but it's the only way I could get it to really work. And quite frankly, it's fine because it's not that complicated calculations, and I could probably package this too differently. Maybe that's another thing I was thinking. It's fun when you go back through because you start opening up your mind to other thoughts. I could put this all in an object. And then, oh no, you can't pass objects through props, I don't think. That's why I was having trouble getting to the details page, because I don't think you can pass objects or arrays through props, or you definitely can't pass them through params. Can you pass? 1 second, I'm gonna look it up over here. React components use props to communicate with each other, blah, 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 blah. Props might remind you can pass any JavaScript value, including objects. Okay, so it's params you can't pass. That's why I couldn't get it to the details, because details isn't a child of trade stats, whereas the trade stats, I'm talking like you can see where I'm pointing, the trade stats header is a child of trade stats, whereas the details is not. And it's not going to be because it's not going to show up on the same page. So cool. Okay, what I might do is put these all in an object and then just pass the object through, because I hate when the props gets like super long like this, but just know that's all we're doing. So let me undo this and comment that. Where's updated trades? Oh, right. Okay. So here's what we're doing. So remember on, go to our inspect tool here. What kind of error do we have here? Okay. So remember here, well, let me get rid of that. I don't want to look at that. Well, I'll show it right now. Remember, from the database, we're getting this, our response, when we get all trades. And then we are using the grouped trades function to turn it into this, which is an array of objects, an array of trades who has an array of transactions as objects within them. Then, and I'll console log this so you can see it. Then, remember we did the, oh, we broke it. Oh, because I didn't undo this, right? Oh, now we're getting. Trade, did I spell something wrong? Trade stats. Sometimes you have to do this like this. Or not. Oh, I'm having a problem with the, oh, there's a problem in here with this. Ah, that's right. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's walk through it again. We get all the trades back, which are just our transactions, I'm going to call them, from Mongo, our database, which is an array of transactions, which are objects. We then group trade them, so it's an array of trades, which each trade then has an array of objects within it, which are transactions. Then we need to clear open trades. That was the one I went over where we had to loop through and only get back trades that are closed. We don't want any open trades for the calculations, at least the way I do it. And that was in, where is that? Oh, right here, clear open trades. And remember, this is, we had to loop through twice, target the dot close trade. If it was true, we're going to keep it. Otherwise, we're going to dump it. So that's what that does. So great. Hopefully that's clear. If not, hit me up on LinkedIn or something. I'm going to stop console logging all this stuff. Need it anymore. Okay, so then we use those updated trades here. And all we're doing is, and we're going to do all the formatting and everything so that in the header, we don't have to do too much formatting and stuff. There'll be a few things we have to format, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. So we can do it all in the trade stats file or component. and then just passing basically values. I think I said variable earlier, but values through, and be done with it. Because remember, this is for each trade, which will have a bunch of transactions. So that's all we're doing there. And we're running through all these functions, and we're just using updated trades now instead of stocks. And then remember how I mentioned the dot notation, most of these functions have a win and a loss. And then we are passing them through the trade stats header, right there. And using props to pass in the props, deconstructing here. Again, I'm going to make that an object. I think that'll be way easier. And then we're just displaying here. And I think because, I don't know why this needs to be formatted. I'll have to take a look, but oh, I don't have any CSS for the header. All right, let me copy in some CSS here. Oh, how I load use CSS. This should be pretty simple though. I'm going to copy this hidden thing in too, so we have it, access to it. Whoops. That was to hide that stuff for a trade that's still open. So what do I need here on trade stats header? What are we using? Stats label, stats inner column. I think I just need this. Ah, yes, I forgot I did this. Might as well just grab all this. It's none of it's just basic CSS stuff. Okay, there we go. I can walk through it real quick. I don't think it's anything all that. We just have a container here. Let me do this. Okay, so we have the overall container. This is remember, this is just the header component. So this piece right here. So we're just using flex, justifying it all to the center. You can play around with that if you want it to be different. And then within each one of those is a column. So 1 column, 2 column, 3 column. I'm sorry. The stats column is one big column here. I can show you on the inspect tool. So this is stats column, what's highlighted here, and then each one of these is the stats inner column. So we have 3 columns, and then 2 columns within each one of those. Which you can see here. And then there's the stats label. Oops, where'd you go? Okay, so stats column, again, is a flex. It's a row, right, with the 2 inner columns in it. I added some gap. Again, play around with that however you want. And then each inner column is also flexed as a column. Just with, played around here with some little things that I thought looked good. The stats labels, which are this. I just did font weight 700. And then, again, most of this was just trial and error, what looked good. And then I did do detail gain loss is the number within the box. So gain or loss, they're the same. And then I did conditional CSS styling here. So if it is a gain, it's green. If it's a loss, it's red. And that's also in the, and remember, most of these don't matter. They don't need to be green or red. You can make them if you want, but it doesn't really serve any purpose because wins are wins, losses are losses. Like one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. I only highlight these, and I'll show you how that works. Let me close the CSS now. On the trade stats, pretty simple. So if, oh, no, not there. Oh, I'm sorry, it's all in the header. I don't know why I just said that. And by the way, this conditional styling will matter way more in the details header, because there is one individual trade you will care about those numbers will be important. So, but again, it's just basic conditional styling. So if total P&L is greater than 0, we use detail gain because it's a gain. Otherwise, it's a loss. We'll highlight it red. Just trying to, why did I have to format these ones though? They should have been already formatted. Oh, I know there was a reason I didn't format them here, and I honestly don't remember. Why did I not format them ahead of time? I don't know. Maybe I should. I honestly don't know why I don't have them formatted in here, but that's something else I'll look. Let's see. Okay, great. I do think I like the kind of having this file that's like, and I'll push this to GitHub so it's available ahead so I can copy and paste it rather than like rebuilding the whole thing. It's just taking way too long. I mean, it's good for me because I do it twice, and I do like that, and I like referencing the old stuff in case it gets stuck. But like, we'll be here forever if I do it that way. So I like this way of speeding it up. And then, so basically, what we did today is we added. I guess we can look at our updates here, but we added the trade stats page, which is great. Details is blank because we're not clicking. We tested to make sure these work. I'm guessing these work. 320 plus 45 is 365 minus 15 is 350. That's, oh no, sorry, gain loss. 140, 139. Okay, so that looks like it's fine. And then 250 was hard coded, so 250 plus 139. Yeah, that looks good. 13.9. That's actually not right. Oh, because total P&L is only taking realized. That's not right. Good catch. Why is that? It should be taking. Because it should be taking total P&L. That's my bad. Total. Much better. I actually need to change that on my other one. I don't know how I did that. I must have overlooked that. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Okay, so now it looks right. Yeah, 38.9. And then so we did the header. We passed all this stuff in, so this all looks like it's working fine. 66 is 2/3. That looks good. Average win. And I mean, we'll go through at the end and double check everything, but I've checked most of these, although I say that and that one was wrong. But that's cool. This was one of the hardest pieces, was getting all of the trades grouped together. It took a really long time. So hopefully that's helpful. The other big one is going to be getting the API to run properly. And it's really it. I feel I already have the details thing figured out. I don't have time to do it today with everyone, but we'll be able to click this like I showed at the beginning of the video. And you can go and look at all the transactions and then see them just like you do on the ledger. So you can see, basically you see the same detail just for the one trade. And then it'll have a header that gives you all the statistics for that single trade. So that'll be cool. And then from there, and I'm going to wait to do all CSS at the end for this file, just because people can do it however they want. But I'll show you what I did. And then the big thing is going to be on this portfolio page, the next big thing. So we'll definitely do the details thing next time because that's pretty simple. But in the meantime, I need to work on the API, getting to work with either Yahoo Finance or Google Finance. I just started looking through them. I use yfinance. There's a great yfinance library. I don't even remember what it's called anymore. For Python, and I'm pretty sure there is one for JavaScript, which makes it so much easier because Yahoo doesn't keep up their developer API. I think they stopped at like 2015 or 2017. So these libraries are great and they package everything into JSON. So it makes it way easier to access the data you need. So I don't know which one I'll use yet, but we'll figure it out soon because I need to, because I do. And then, yeah, so that's what we did today. So I think the last thing we'll do is we'll need to get the detail thing, which I already have done. So that will definitely happen next time. I'm hoping to get the API thing done in the meantime. So then we'll have the API, the details, and then what's cool about that is, well, I don't have it up anymore, but the statistics, that realized gain loss or total P&L. And we could look at it. I could have the equity curve be both dollar and percent, or we could have two, but then the equity curve will show how we're doing every single day and it will be live, which will be kind of cool. Or yeah, because I guess when you open the app, it'll call the API once, and then you just, I can hit a button to call it again if you want to update what you have. So that will do, and then all the details, the API, equity curve. The to-do list will be pretty simple. That's I'm not exactly sure what that'll look like yet, but I'm gonna keep that really, really simple. And then I guess that will be a form. I guess I'll have another model for to-dos because I'll have to store the data. Because usually what I do is I do the data, I do all my analysis at night, type it all up in Excel. That way when I wake up in the morning, I just have my trade sheet and it's ready to go. So I really don't even have to think. I mean, I always double check that my numbers are right before I put the trade in, but usually 99 times out of 100, my Excel sheet is 100% exactly what it needs to be. So yeah, that's it. I think that was good. And the last thing we'll do, and this will be down the road, because when this is done, I'll do like 4 or 5 20-minute review videos. So it's nice and broken down in a playlist. So you can go through and actually see how the thing works and go through the code. But hopefully this is helpful to actually go through each piece of code. I know it takes forever, but like it's a lot of code. And so hopefully it's helpful. But when this is done and working properly and all the API stuff works, I am going to put this, I'm going to make the database MySQL and use Nest and Prisma because I'm learning that right now for a different project I'm doing. And it's just way more high value, production ready, deployable type of application that's a lot more secure the way it works with its authorization stuff. So, but that's down the road. So for now, hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, leave a comment or my LinkedIn's in there. You can shoot me a LinkedIn DM. All right, thanks.